just that post-nut clarity, you know? It's like, oh man,
Tyler!
I gotta watch. I gotta listen
to walk away.
I gotta listen to Rewatchers on the pod as a palate cleanser.
This is really, of all things, this is the line.
Slowly
Apparently, this is the line.
Still 4 fingers.
Oh, right. It's a good thing I can't do my Daffy Duck impression anymore.
Oh, thank goodness.
Not Daffy Donald.
Gloves.
What's under the gloves, Mickey?
Close your eyes.
I'm just imagining that glove just slapping the window is like a la Titanic.
Welcome to the Rewatchers on the pod. Oh, that felt so good. So good. This is the Rewatchers pod where we rewatch shit. My name's Mitchell, here along with
Tyler McKinley.
Gwen Hammer.
Tyler Harris.
Justin Hammer.
and our special guest for the week,
Trevor Newsome.
Trevor. Welcome.
Thanks.
We're so excited to have you here. You chose our movie, The Burbs, and we'll hear about it in just a moment why. But first of all, a lot of people haven't seen it. You know, it came out in 1989. So dear Tyler Harris is going to give us a summary of every single thing that happened in this beautiful suburban little cul-de-sac.
All right, here we go. Justin thinks Google Maps was weird in the 80s. Tom Hanks looks at a creepy house and hears weird noises at night while a smoking man looks at Tom Hanks looking at a creepy house. The paperboy does his job on easy mode. A cool teen prepares to paint a house. The lieutenant raises the flag then steps in Queenie's shit. Tom Hanks has become obsessed with his new neighbors. He doesn't want to go to the lake. He just wants to be lazy. A man named after art itself has a gun and a dollar store ghillie suit and invites himself to breakfast. He has some dirt on those Klopek characters. Tom Hanks' son, Colin, has even more dirt on the Klopeks. Mrs. Rumsfeld doesn't have any tan lines. A wild Klopek appears, then disappears. Tom Hanks and Art are attacked by bees when they knock on the Klopek door. The Klopeks watch. Tom Hanks takes his dog for a walk in the smoke. Art tells Ray and Ricky a story about a man who killed his whole family. Ray and Carol watch Jeopardy. Ricky watches The Neighborhood. Art has been watching the Klopeks. The Klopeks basement lights up like the goddamn 4th of July. The wild Klopek drives his trash to the curb. Ray watches the Klopeks dig holes in their backyard all night. Two garbage men discuss the viability of healing crystals. Ray and Carol fight about the cottage. Ray and the lieutenant rifle through the garbage truck. Queenie is wandering around without any adult supervision. Swimmer goes into Walter's house. They find his toupee and break his cookies. Ray takes Queenie to his house. A second Klopek appears. Art believes the Klopeks killed Walter in a satanic ritual. Carol isn't so sure, but the TV knows what's up. Ray has a bad dream. Tom Hanks predicts his own Oscar nomination 30 years ahead of time. Carol grounds Ray. The lieutenant and Ray leave a note for the Klopeks. Ray is mad about it. Vince delivers a human thigh to his owner. The Klopeks return Art's note to Ray. The Rumsfeld and the Petersons take brownies to the Klopeks. They meet Reuben and Hans. Art, Ricky, and Colin Hanks run a recon operation. The house party is totally dead. Ray seductively eats a sardine. One of the Klopeks is a doctor. How nice. Dr. Klopek arrives red-handed and turns on the charm. The Klopeks have to move very often. The lieutenant goes full military on the doctor. The Klopeks horse escapes. Ray finds Walter's wig at the Klopeks house and he has a plan. The Klopeks leave for the day. Carol and Colin Hanks go to her sister's for the weekend. Art has an outfit for every occasion. Turns out Art maybe doesn't know what he's doing for once. Ricky provides color commentary for this afternoon's antics. Digging holes is more work than Art had bargained for. Art and Ray break and enter. They discover a real big furnace in the basement, so they turn it on, of course. The lieutenant falls off the roof. Art and Ray start digging. Ricky calls the pizza dude, and the Klopeks make an early return. Art and Ray find Walter's dead body in the basement, and Walter pulls into his own driveway. The Klopeks return with the fuzz. Art and Ray hit a gas line and blow up the Klopeks house. Ray makes his way out of the burned remains of the Klopeks house. Carol returns home to the cul-de-sac full of emergency personnel. Art tells the police there's a body in the house. Walter's children took him to the hospital for his heart problems. Ray tells Art they were the monsters all along. Ray's been blown up. Please, someone take him to the hospital. Dr. Klopek gets into the ambulance with Ray. Oh no, the Klopeks were the monsters all along. The Naps were in the furnace and Hans is driving the ambulance. The ambulance crashes through Art's house and Klopek and Ray sled into Klopek's car and they have a trunk full of bones. Art declares a war on the weirdos on behalf of all suburbia. Ray and Carol are finally going to the lake. Art's wife is home and Ricky is acting sheriff of the cul-de-sac.
The
That's it. That's all the Burbs.
Was that really Colin Hanks?
No.
Okay.
It was Tom Hanks' son in the movie, so I assumed his name was
well, you said so
probably
often, I was
Colin
like,
in the
oh, is that
script.
really Colin Hanks? I'm like, his skull really thinned out and lengthened.
It kind of would have been the perfect not because I was thinking the movie is almost like a knockoff of that season of movie, except for Tom Hanks because he's Tom Hanks. Because you have like Art is knockoff Dan Aykroyd.
Right, yeah,
It's
yeah.
could have gone wrong in a lot of ways, and so if it would have been Colin Hanks, it almost would have been perfect.
Yeah, it would have been perfect.
Or if Tom Hanks had a brother that only starred in one movie.
Yes.
By a raise of hands, because we're in a visual medium, who had seen this before? Okay, all right. All right.
Secret.
Tyler had seen it, and our wonderful guest had seen it. So let us know why, of all the movies in the world you could have watched with us and talked about in front of a microphone, why The Burbs?
Yeah, the Burbs is just a movie that I always find myself going back to on rainy days, Sundays.
Those are the 2 days that are best for the Burbs. I
It's
think.
Saturday afternoons too. Saturday afternoons.
Controversial take. That's a controversial opinion, but
Sorry.
I could see it.
Yeah, no, it's. I think there's a level of relatability, as sad as that sounds, with especially the main character Ray. Like I don't know how many times that I found myself at the window staring at my neighbor's dog doing something. Or
I
like
actually had this thought during the movie. I was like, Trevor would be a great fit for this character. If
It's
there
like
was like
all-
a stage version of this, I would expect to see Trevor
like
in it
out
at
on the
some
porch,
point.
smoking a cigar, just
Yes.
like upset about everything but not doing anything, getting fat.
And not wanting to go to the goddamn cottage.
Right. But he wins in the end, so I watch it.
I'm a winner.
I am
know
a
it.
winner.
This
Yeah.
feels like a movie that was remade out of a French movie. Like, why are we, it's just
Yeah.
like observationally why things are a little weirder than we think. But I definitely lived on a couple cul-de-sacs as a kid where there were some like mysterious people, weird people, and kids who would always play together. It's funny that was made in '89, and they're like, remember when everyone was just good friends and everyone left their door unlocked? And I feel like we were saying that about the '90s, but it's definitely not true now.
Yeah. This movie, this was a movie that it's kind of the same for me. This is like, there were probably like 5 movies that were just on like repeat at my house, and it was The Burbs, Ferris Bueller, School of Rock, Tommy Boy. That's actually probably it. Those 4, or Wayne's World occasionally. So, those were like the movies that I watched all the time with my family growing up, and it's just so good. It's such a delightful, like,
Cozy.
little trip for me. Yeah, it is. It's cozy.
Yeah,
But yeah.
As soon as it first starts, I immediately am like, oh man, that '90s style is. I maybe it's just because I was young when those types of movies were coming out, and it is just a full nostalgia factor. But there's something different about '90s films that just feel, like late '80s, early '90s, that feel. I talked about it before, a little more tangible. The movies now, it's not movies like this that are made now are lit in such a way that it almost feels hyper realistic and fake, and that I maybe just lighting technology or something, but something about it just feels more tangible and different, but also fake in a different way of like things. This isn't the way the police department works. Like, this isn't the way, like, you can't fall from this height and not sustain injury when you're Bruce Dern's age. Like, just stuff like that gives it a different flavor than anything that comes out now.
Yeah.
It's just the way they talk, the way they drive the cars, the way the camera moves in interior and exterior. It is like it has a very strong type, and you can kind of see it evolve throughout the '90s. But this definitely makes you feel like this is a VHS you would have popped in.
Yeah. This, and also, like, watching this movie, because I watched it so many times back then, there's always a part of me that expects to be like, is this the time that's going to kind of break for me? That, like, the movie's not necessarily going to work as well as I wanted it to, you know? But this movie's really good. Like, the humor is, I think a lot of that is due to the script and the performances. I mean, Tom Hanks is incredible, and he's just as Tom Hanks as he can be in this movie. I
Dude,
think
that ambulance bit at the end, I just loved it. Because the nostalgia factor isn't there for me, so I was probably a little bit more exhausted with some of the twists and turns, but it did feel very familiar, like almost this they kind of mix some genre in there.
Yeah.
And so there are definitely some points where I was kind of really anticipating the next thing, but definitely all the little bits in between just... Because that's what it is. It's supposed to be making you laugh. Like, you're not supposed to be all that concerned with the actual outcome of the mystery. And so it had a really nice balance between those two things.
Yeah.
There's something I noticed this time too was that there's a lot of genre mixture, like even to the point where there's Western in there.
Yeah.
The close-ups on the eyes when it goes to the dog is so good.
It's like a little kid at a genre party ate all the cookies and then threw up.
They use all the little horror tropes. They use Corey Feldman. That's a very 80s thing. Not just Corey Feldman himself, but just any cut to him. I'm like, that's
Corey Feldman.
right out of a movie from the 80s. That would just have some kid doing
You could
that
probably
crap.
just interject cuts of Corey Feldman from other movies into this movie, and it
For
would
sure,
be
for
the
sure.
exact same effect.
They did one zoom in on his eyes, but I'm like, I have no idea when they shot that. It might not have been for this time. They were just like, we need a zoom on Corey Feldman's face.
like that shot where the pizza van. They don't have pizza vans now,
That's
but
how
they
many
had them.
pizzas he ordered. They needed to break the
When it
van.
crashes-
Crashes for the friends.
And there's the audio clip of him be like, "Oh no, the pizza dude!" Like that probably was not recorded for that. Like it was just taken from the previous scene and just put over it.
It was a
Like
commercial he did 3 years prior that never aired.
pizza.
It wasn't even his voice. It was Corey Haim's voice.
Yeah, there's so many. The fact that they do that scream with just the zooming in and out 5 times, and they don't cut. The scene just continues after that is such an incredible choice. It's so.
They even
fun.
let it fade out to where Tom Hanks is it's almost like he knows he's doing that, and his character knows he's not really afraid or anything.
Yeah.
It just kind of I don't know, fades out. It's weird.
Oh, we're screaming now.
Yeah. It's so good. So good. Yeah, I honestly I love everything about this movie.
People who have seen it the first time tonight, how did you feel about it?
Tom Hanks just made me feel so comfortable that I was like, all right, I'm here for the ride. Let's see where we go. Yeah. It was a good time.
Interesting is this is only 4 years before Forrest Gump, which is really interesting. Do you think about where he comes from and where that sparks him and sends him off to? Not that he was obviously big before that, from Big and Philadelphia and everything, but it kind of makes me want to watch some of his earlier stuff. I've never seen that one with him and the dog. It just doesn't look appealing. I don't know if I'll
Turner
ever watch
and
this
Hooch.
again. Yeah,
You haven't
Turner
seen
and Hooch.
that.
I know!
But he chews
Yeah.
the flower apart. It's so cute. And then he's dead at the end, but then he's not. And you don't know.
Oh, now I know the whole plot. But yeah, I'll probably watch. I enjoyed it just because it is actually one I think they could remake and it could be really funny. I like the stereotypes because I had a weird, creepy, mysterious neighbor. I had a neighbor who was would call the cops for little shit and manicured their lawn perfectly. And so just some of those little types in between, it was kind of fun to see those brought to life and in just the right amount of character versus what they serve for the actual story.
Yeah.
I was thinking that it's interesting to watch this movie now as an adult for the first time instead of watching it as a kid. It could be being in a position where I'm at a stage in my life where, we've already kind of talked about this. I spy on my neighbors occasionally. What the hell are they doing over there? Why haven't they taken down their damn Christmas lights yet? It's February.
Well,
Come on.
You had
Tyler, get those lights off your fucking house. I'm trying to enjoy St. Patrick's Day in a few weeks.
I got blinds for a reason, okay?
Yeah.
But you had a stabbing across the street, didn't you?
I don't know. I overheard a conversation about the cops were there, and I overheard somebody talking about she was trying to stab me or something. I don't.
What
I
are we
don't
doing
know.
in your basement right now and not in your neighbor's
It was a
basement
long time
right
ago.
now?
I have no idea what happened. They seem like they're happy. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
They
hearing a
seem
lot
like-
of they seem.
I don't even know what
Perfectly
their
nice
names
people.
are. So that's the other thing. I feel like I might be that house on this street that people are afraid of sometimes, just because people don't really know who I am. Other than Tyler, we live right next door to each other. We hang out, but everybody else is kind of outside the social circles. So I don't know.
The only interactions
the
I've had with
neighbors.
my
Okay, well maybe it's just me then. Gwen knows
the only interactions I've had with my neighbors are. Okay, so this movie connects with me in the opening because my neighbor's dog shit my lawn a lot this summer, and I was done. So I got a picture of the dog pooping on my lawn, like literally just squatting. The next time it happened, I grabbed it in a bag, I took it to their front door, I rang the doorbell, and was like, "This is your shit!" I was more calm than that. I was like, I invited them both to the door.
This is your dog's shit.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, yeah, that dog was right there, which was nice. I was like, I have a picture of this dog shitting on my lawn, and I'd already spoken to them.
Did you use the word shit?
Oh, yeah, I did. I'd already talked to them beforehand, so I was like pretty mad this time.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I don't want to be that guy, but we've talked to you before. It's continuing to happen. This is your dog shit. I held it up into their face. And I was like, I've got a picture of him, and I'm not going to do anything about it yet, but the next time I see shit on my lawn, I'm going to contact the HOA and send them this picture, and then we'll talk again.
How did they? That's not many people would do that confrontation. People are cowards these days about interaction with other humans. What did they say?
Well, the wife was very apologetic, embarrassed. The husband was very.
Like how you came at him, bro.
Well, he was very much like a little bit more like offering excuses. But it's like, what are you gonna say? It's like,
oh, that's my shit.
A lot of dogs actually shit. I mean, you could have a picture of my dog, but it might. I mean, a lot of dogs look the same too.
There's no way to tell from that picture that that's your lawn.
So the most devastating moment of this movie for me was when the man who owned that dog ended up being alive. And I was pissed.
Can I just say, if you ever take shit over them again, I think you should mix in one of your own logs
This is, and you just say this is shit.
And I have pictures of your dog crapping on my lawn. I'm not saying they're related.
It's a small dog. I'd have to eat a lot of freaking not brand cereal.
Just take a
corn
piece.
cereal.
I'm having another moment where I'm gonna walk away.
No, that would really, because I like dogs. My mother was allergic to dogs,
Your
so I
mom
didn't
more than
love
you
them.
been.
So I've grown to enjoy them, but man, my roommate's got a dog that just pisses me off. So now I'm pretty anti-dog mode. Like if your dog F's with me, watch out.
That is a straight threat.
If it bites me, I get to throw it. That's my rule.
I'm going to be honest. We joke around a lot on this podcast. Mitchell is terrifying me right now.
My jovial voice is not coming through in my face.
But yeah, being a neighbor and adult watching this movie, it's different this time because actually the first time I saw this, I was in high school, and yeah, I didn't have any beef with my neighbors then. So now I do, and it's a lot more relatable, and it's yeah, also kind of like ashamed at points where I'm like, oh yeah, I may be like projecting too much hatred and blame onto the people I live by for like every little infraction.
But are you? You're gonna find a trunk full of skulls.
Well, that's the thing I love about this movie is like at the end, Tom Hanks gives this like super long, impassioned speech that seems like, oh, this is the moral of the film. 2 seconds later, it's like he was right the whole time.
Did they clean it? Had the dog ever crapped in your lawn and then they cleaned it up at least? Or did they always leave it?
After I talked to them, I did see him one time come over to my yard.
But beforehand, had they ever just left a shit in your lawn?
Yes.
Many times.
Yeah.
See, if they would have cleaned up after it every time and were trying to teach the dog to keep out of there, I'd be like, it's a dog. It's a little hard to tell him where to shit. But man, if they did that, I'd get a shot collar.
I can't wait to see your neighbors' comments on this episode because I know they listen.
Everyone in the world. How great would that be if they did? Like,
that'd be amazing.
Let's put a flyer on their door. Podcast featuring you.
That's what that's the thing that we haven't done for this podcast that we should have is passing out flyers.
Canvassing.
Yeah.
Yeah. People will be like, oh gosh, is this another one for Bernie? No. For my podcast.
We're once again asking you to listen to our podcast.
Don't vote. Listen to our podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say I love that ending moment of this movie because it lets the movie be about both things. It lets you get the satisfaction of being like, they were the bad people all along, but also it does get that, it gives that moment enough time to breathe where it's like, oh yeah, I'm the crazy person in the suburbs. It like might temper it just enough that it's like, I'm not ever gonna blow up someone's house, but I still might find out they're a murderer. You know, like it's like I'm not. So it's good. I like that about this movie. I like that it lets it be both things at the end.
So that all of the serial killers out there get to have their moment as well.
Right? Yes.
Yeah, we're not bad people. Like, we're just doing what makes us feel good.
You remember that Shia LaBeouf movie where he's spying on the neighbor and thinks he's a murderer?
Suburbia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is it-
Quality
is it
Shia
Shia
LaBeouf
LaBeouf's
movie.
Rear Window.
Disturbia. Suburbia is a different thing.
No, Disturbia. Yeah.
Disturbia.
You're right.
Yeah.
I was watching that and I was thinking, this is kind of bad this movie came out because now some serial killers are going to know what not to do.
That's how they plan things.
Well, I was just thinking like how much easier it would be to like get these people if they lived in our current day and age. Because like if you see people, like you got all those other reports, you have a video of them digging in their backyard in the rain at like 2 a.m, and then you provide a femur. It's a little more.
Yeah, well, and you can
just
call
whip out
blue
your
stakes
phone.
because no one's supposed to dig without first calling blue stakes to make sure they're not hitting
But they
my
had
power line.
But they had power lines above because it's old school.
True.
They didn't have the
The
internet.
security
I thought about
they
that during
had,
this
the
movie. I was like,
batteries.
You're right.
And why just leave the bones in the trunk? And why bury them in your back? Like, both of those are bad ideas.
I will say, okay, in defense
Read
of
a Ted
leaving
Bundy
shit in your
podcast.
trunk,
Okay.
there have been times where I have let a lot of garbage build up in my car, and it just gets to a point where it's like, I'm gonna let it go a little bit further because then it will make it really worth it when I clean it out. You know what I mean?
You're like,
So I think
one
that's
more
probably what it
skull.
was. Yeah.
One more. It's like,
It is bad luck with hamsters.
yeah. It's like, what's the point of throwing these bones away when I'm going to kill someone again next week?
Yeah, I'm
well,
just gonna have to
here's
do
my
this all.
theory, right? They knew that they were that they were under suspicion. People were going to search their house. They're like, we got to pack up all the skulls and the bones. We're going to leave the house and we're going to go bury these up in the mountains or something. And then that's why they came back earlier, because they're like, oh shit, we forgot that one in the furnace. And then their house is blown up. And so it's like all in their trunk because they're going to get rid of it, maybe.
Man, do you know what? They could have built a great sequel if the Klopex didn't come back, and it was just that the Klopex went to bury their dead bodies next to Ray and Carol's cottage out by the lake. It's just like he's like, okay, he's like, we're gonna go on vacation and get away from it all, and then bam, Burbs 2. Nature calls.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Burbed again.
if Hans had gotten away at the end there, they could have set that up nicely.
yeah.
Shouts to the doctor who I feel like I've seen him in a bunch, but the only thing I could think of was Luck of the Irish, the Disney Channel original movie.
Yeah,
He's
you're
the
right.
Irish leprechaun grandfather. And he's like
Wow.
chained to the basketball hoop during the final scene. And he runs a potato factory?
You might be one of the most well-versed people in Disney, like old school Disney original movies that I know.
Thank you.
I don't remember shit about that movie other than he finds some money on the ground in one scene. I'm like, I wish that was me.
I remember that at the very end, what he has learned is that he should embrace his heritage and sings, "This land is your land, this land is my land, this land was made for you."
Is it a musical?
No, he just sings it out of assembly at the end because he's trying to get with this chick. It makes no sense.
His hair is so bad.
Oh, yeah.
Patriotism really turns on the ladies, apparently.
He's also, if you ever want to criticize a movie for its sports choreography, yeah, basketball is pretty bad. It's worse than Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where the court is 12 yards long.
Speaking of yards, the Burbs.
Oh, yeah.
They're. Can we talk about art?
Yeah.
Like, no.
What is art, really? Like, what would you say, Trevor?
What qualifies
I had a
art?
professor who, the first day of class, this is art history, and he stood up and he said that he asked that. He said, "What is art?" And everyone was like, "Oh, it's like human expression of emotion, like it's our getting into touch with like what we can understand." And he's just listening to all of this, and then when everyone shut up, he just says, "Art rhymes with fart." You're all just going,
Legend.
all right, cool.
I like
That's
it.
it. This semester's gonna be.
Yeah, and then he says, class dismissed forever.
Right.
You
watch
all
some
get
movies.
B's.
It's amazing.
So anyway, what do you think
Yeah, let's
about
talk about art.
Knock off Dan Aykroyd. That's how I felt about him.
Knock off Dan.
See, I like watching Dan Aykroyd. This guy made me so uncomfortable, but it was like in a good way.
Yeah,
Like,
he was aggressively being.
he's just somebody that you hate him in this movie so much, and it's so great how bad he is.
So I do. One of my favorite things about art happens a little later in the movie is, first of all, the scene where he shows up in a very golfing outfit. Yes, just that. There is some dialogue between Tom Hanks and Art that is just like a masterclass. Like when Hans first comes out on the porch and they're talking that entire time, like, he's gonna go. You better go talk to him. If you don't right now, he's gonna go back in. And that whole like just holding on Hans that entire time is so incredible. And yeah, and that golf, the thing he delivers about golf as he's walking up to is just so good. But I like that the scene immediately after that, he's wearing an entire electrician's getup, and I'm like, is this Art's thing? Is that he
He's in
has
theater.
like all these guys? Yeah, exactly.
He's just an adult theater enthusiast.
Get this man into Chorus Line or something. Like, there's got to be local theater going on somewhere. But
Better than Tom Hanks was
love
wearing
that.
slacks during like the big operation.
Oh man, I freaking love that part where he's going to cut the power line and he's like, "You should be doing. There's a lot of juice in that." And he's like, "Electricity is our friend." I'm like, that is the dumbest justification for me to answer that question that way.
I love too that Art never gets a comeuppance, really. I mean, he gets attacked by Ray briefly at the end, but then is quickly vindicated, kind of.
His wife comes home.
Oh yeah, that's true.
His house is on fire.
Let's say, yeah.
But more importantly, his wife comes home.
That's true, yeah.
It's like one of those gags that is so dumb, but I'm still dying every time I hear it.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that, like, even if his house burns down, I don't think he learns a lesson from that at all. You know what I mean? It's just, art is art.
I am Art.
Just makes him more of a martyr. Like,
Yeah.
She knew what she married into.
What was that?
She knew what she married into.
She
Hopefully.
got home.
We hope. We hope.
She's just standing there with all the suitcases. Art.
House is on fire!
And then the Home Improvement theme song comes in, and the next episode, nothing's changed. I'm really impressed.
it's been a long time. Yeah.
Good. I think that like this movie really has like the perfect, I feel like the perfect number of characters. Like all of them are believable and like cranked up to 11 in the right ways. Like even Mrs. Rumsfeld, I think, is such a fun character in this movie because I feel like at the beginning, I mean, she's obviously presented very objectified, but like some of the stuff she does in this movie is some of my favorite. Like the stuff with the dog, with Queenie, like when she picks him up and is going to take him over, like it's just so fun and like real, and it feels fresh, and like her baking brownies and like being this perfect housewife to this insane man plagued by the nightmares of his service to our country. Like all of that, like their whole dynamic is so great. It's so fun. I love all the characters in this
So the
movie.
most unrealistic thing about this movie is Corey Feldman's character, a teenager who wears a leather jacket with metal studs on it, who says he loves the suburban neighborhood that he's growing up in.
You want to go to a movie? No, it's happening right here, babe. And he wasn't wrong.
Propaganda. Kids, be comfortable with your neighborhood. It's fun.
Conformity is
His
cool.
parents were just out of town. I also love the bottle episode-ness of it, that it all stayed right on that piece of the cul-de-sac. I went to Universal Studios and did their little studio tour, and it's around live set, so I got to see the Good Place set, which was a big deal for me.
Oh, that's cool.
But they take you through this thing called Colonial Street, and it's most well known for what is that movie? Desperate Housewives. But it's been used in like hundreds of things, and instantly I knew it was on that, so I Googled it to double check, and I was like, it is just so cool how they can just change the facades of these, and everything took place right there. And they said it actually made it tough, and they tried to think of reasons to leave the neighborhood, and then they felt like that would ruin the idea of like, this is the suburban craze.
Yeah.
And so I think just production-wise, to just keep it all right there was just made it even more fun and curated the specific experience.
Yeah. Sure.
There's that's a miniature at the beginning, right?
It had to be.
Yeah, I feel like
I missed the transition this time of when it goes. I looked away, and when I looked back, it was the actual neighborhood. So they did it pretty well, I think, right?
Yeah.
There's not like
It
a
looks good.
clear.
It looked
Yeah.
great, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of lightning without rain for a while in this. I was very confused.
I think that's just part. I think it's just the trope. I just like it. When something bad's happening, I need to get that indicator. You know what I
I think
mean?
there's a country song about that. Lightning without rain.
It sounds
hope so.
like it. Would you mind giving us 16
Sure,
bars of
sure,
that,
here we go.
Trevor?
Lightning without rain brings me all the pain. Lightning without rain just tears apart my brain.
Yeah, for anyone who needs to get Shazam ready, just like rewind that, you'll be able to get it because that is exactly what it sounds like.
My dog is gone, she took him.
And now
in the truck I loved. But baby, I don't remember what the song was
at least
about.
now I'm drunk. Okay. Oh, shouts to the one character I don't think we've mentioned yet who kind of gets a crap role, but Carrie Fisher's in this movie.
Yeah.
Great, yeah.
Everyone was so mean to Carrie.
Yeah. Because she's
She's the mom.
responsible. She played the straight woman when there was no real jokes to be made for being the straight person.
Yeah, yeah. I do like she shows like pretty much not a whole lot of concern that her husband's like gonna go to jail at the end when he's just, I really do like your hair, and she's just like, there's my husband. Like, I don't know what that moment is, but it's just kind of like, cool, yeah, this is
The financial consequences stressed me out. And the idea that they are murderers, like, absolved him of that. I'm like, maybe not. I don't know. And he's like, yeah, when I get out of prison, I'm going to make this.
I will say, luckily, none of that stuff was in the house, which any evidence there would now be inadmissible, I would assume. And luckily, it was just in the trunk, like a literal trunk full of bones.
Man.
Great.
Yeah, I remember one of my first times, I think I was seeing this movie. It might have not been, but it was first time I heard the term citizen's arrest. I asked my dad, I'm like, is that a thing? He's like, you don't want to mess with that shit. And that was the end of our conversation.
Oh, man, there is a story there I wish you had heard. Oh, man.
Especially when there's cops, like, right there. Like,
Citizen's arrest.
I wonder when the first time I heard about that. It might have been, like, The Office, because Dwight tries it, right? That's all I can
that
think
happens.
of.
Yeah. I will say, this is like... probably like top 10 for me of lines that just like circulate through my brain randomly is the chanting sequence when he's like,
That's healthy.
we want to kill everyone. Satan is a friend. Satan is a pal. Like that just like goes through my head constantly. And this movie has a lot of those, not like, you know what I mean? But like, it's just like, it's one of those lines that I always think of. And it's such a funny, bizarre line.
Just the fact that he has that book, like this giant
Yes.
tome of
Which I
satanic
want.
rituals.
It looks amazing.
It does look pretty
It
amazing.
really does, though. Yeah,
I listen to some really good podcasts on like Satanism and devil worship, which are very different things. Last year, it's super fascinating.
Yeah.
Let's stop there. That's
So what
another
did you
podcast.
think of the illustrations? Accurate?
Well,
Arousing?
Let me show you this tattoo that I just got.
yeah. Oh, not the Mickey Mouse and the Rock having sex one.
I'd like to talk about our new sponsor, Lucifer.
He looks a lot like Mickey Mouse. We can't really use him until 2024. But trust me, this is Lucifer, not Mickey Mouse.
There's already a Disney character called Lucifer, though. You'd be friends. The
in
cat
Fanta-
from Cinderella.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Damn it. They've got everything covered. Fuck.
No, but yeah, some of Art's lines though are so dumb and so funny. Just that part where she's like, "Not until he resembles the man that I married." She's like, we don't get that kind of time. It's like lines you can see coming, but you're just so excited to see them anyway.
Yeah.
There's one moment with it that I never really caught on to until I want to say like a year ago, but it's when he's sitting at the breakfast table and he's just grabbing this steak, and then she comes by with the bowl of dog food, and he just reaches in and grabs a handful and just shoves it in his mouth, and then he's like, what is she doing giving me that shit? And he's so offended. And I was just, it kills me now every time that I see that.
I mean, that
face.
happens just minutes after he puts an empty bottle, like a completely empty bottle of syrup back in the fridge. What a monster.
And then pulls out like leftover ribs. Like, what kind of asshole? Oh, man.
Pineapple.
Yes, a whole pineapple.
A whole pineapple.
After bacon, eggs, toast.
I will say, thinking of shooting that scene like made me sick to my stomach, just because of the idea of having to do multiple takes of he like jams an entire pancake into his mouth.
How many
like,
cuts
at
are
one
in?
point.
Does it cut frequently during that? I'm just thinking like, how much did he actually swallow while they were trying to get this? Like,
I don't.
how many times did he get to spit it out? Like,
He was, because he talks with a mouthful, so they might have had some chances.
Yeah, but man, it is.
there are a few things in movies that make me more uncomfortable than scenes like that. Like just like gorging on food. I hate that stuff so much. Ugh.
That's why props to Brad Pitt. He's a really good movie eater that doesn't make it look difficult.
eating so often in Ocean's
I would
11,
like to see a nice data chart of seeing the attractiveness of a person gorging themselves versus how uncomfortable you feel over time.
I'm pretty sure Carl's Jr. did this study
It turned
before
out
approving
pretty
any
well.
of their marketing campaigns.
Have you guys seen this new Carl's Jr. sandwich called the BFC?
No.
Well, here's our new sponsor for the week. No, it's literally called the BFC. It's the Big Fried Cheese. And so it's just a giant burger and then has a fried cheese layer. Like a thick fried cheese layer. It's only 1,050 calories. I looked it up because I'm dieting and calorie counting and I wanted it. But it made me think of how the commercials have changed from,
Yeah.
to now.
Yeah.
Anything else
2005
on the
was a
Burbs?
different time.
If we're still talking about art, I think his introduction is spectacular.
I did want to say that, yeah, about all.
There's literally one line. Art's got a gun. And it's, we know everything about him.
Yeah.
Based on like the way that they're reacting to him having a gun, the fact that he has a gun in a suburban neighborhood. And he's just like, the crows. She wants me to do something about them. I don't know.
Well, I love the way that scene is set up too, because it immediately feels like he's threatening their dog. Like, because you just see the shot of the dog, and then you see a man emerging from the bushes, and the dog looking concerned, and it's like it like injects this like horror early on, and then kind of like lets the air out of it a little bit, but you know that there's like more of those moments coming, and I think it works so well in this movie. Like those, I don't feel, for me at least, and again, this is probably because I've seen this movie so many times, but for me, those tonal shifts and like the blending of those tones works so well. In a way that I don't know a lot of other movies from this specific time could say. You know what I mean? Like, especially for a movie that's so firmly a comedy.
We talked about this a lot with Krampus, actually. On a previous podcast, but it's a lot more on the horror comedy. But the way they shift that tone is actually pretty impressive sometimes.
Yeah,
and that's the only thing I can think of comparable, which also like pretty home and neighborhood based as well.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's an impressive feat of that writing.
Yeah, oh, man, it's really good writing. And Laura Dern's dad is in it, which I'll watch Laura Dern's dad in anything.
For some reason, this time watching it, all I could think of is his scene in Django. Just that brief flashback.
Oh, in Hateful Eight?
That I can't quote because of a certain word that's used multiple times in that scene. No,
oh, he's in Django. Oh, yeah, I know.
He's got a bigger role in Hateful Eight. But,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It was just his flashback to when he's like, I don't even remember. He's not upside down in that scene, but anyway. That's all I could think of the whole time, is just him.
Yeah, not the upside down scene, the other one.
You got sand, Django.
So I had to look up this director, Joe Dante, because I was curious what else he had done. Things I've heard of: Piranha.
Wait, like the original Piranha?
Yeah.
Okay.
He directed that. Twilight Zone, the movie, one of the segments. Gremlins 2, a movie called Amazon Women on the Moon. and then
Holy shit! I'm watching.
Small Soldiers, and then
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
the last one I've heard of is Looney Tunes Back in Action in 2003, and then he's done a bunch of stuff I've never heard of, but kind of an interesting. I was wondering if he'd kind of done stuff similar to this, and I don't really think so.
Small Soldiers feels like the best 80s movie made in the 90s. Or like early 2000s.
I think it was
wasn't
98.
Was it 98?
Yeah,
Okay,
I love that movie.
Yeah,
I was
it's
collecting those Small Soldiers.
Yeah.
And hoping they would come to life.
We've still got like the Small Soldiers
Spencer
Rock'em Sock'em robot toys that they released.
Really?
They're poorly designed because Rock'em Sock'em robots are on the same platform. These are just two like things that you can just move around, and so it just ends up with you chasing your brother around and hitting him with it because you're pissed off they didn't make the fight fair. So, fuck you, Small Soldiers Rock'em Sock'em robots.
I know I had one that had like a gun, and you'd like put a little piece of plastic in it, and it would pop out of there. And I think Kirsten Dunst is in that movie as like the older teenage
Sure.
sister or something.
Yeah.
That's all I remember. Anyway,
Yeah.
good childhood times.
You said Gremlins, right?
Yeah,
Gremlins
and
1 and
Gremlins
2.
2.
Cool.
Yeah.
Classic. I've never
Yeah.
seen them.
I've never seen Gremlins actually.
Really?
Dude, my family didn't watch 80s movies. Like, I don't know why my family thought this decade was, like, evil or something. It wouldn't surprise me. They were crazy back then. And, yeah, we watched movies from the 70s and the 90s. Nothing in between that.
That is so I was like mostly 80s movies.
I saw
feel
most
like.
of my 80s movies the first time at your house.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a good time for movies. I like them.
I do too.
Controversial opinion. Full of them tonight.
I just listened to a podcast with Sam Esmail, who does Mr. Robot. He did Homecoming for Amazon, and he, with a couple of these podcast hosts, went through the best director who started each decade, and they started in the 40s. So like they'd say names I like knew but didn't really understand, and it was super interesting to hear him like go through all of that and which decades he really, really enjoyed and which ones he thought were weaker. But that just made me think of the 80s are like, where do I draw my line? Because I think the 80s are definitely stronger than the 90s. And maybe the 2000s. But the 2010s, maybe I'm biased because, you know.
For me, it's that gap of like 85 to 95. That's the decade. That's the strong one.
But I like a lot of
fair.
bad movies from the early 90s because they were part of my childhood.
Yeah.
Three Ninjas all the way.
Oh, we should watch
Three Ninjas Knuckle Up!
There's a lot of people like don't know what that movie is.
I don't know what that movie is.
Oh, okay. We might be watching
might
that on
have
a future
to.
podcast day.
I was just recently talking to someone about Three Ninjas, and they're like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Well, Hulk Hogan's in the third one." That's the way I led about describing Three Ninjas,
Hulk Hogan's in the third one.
which has no kids from the first one.
Don't they recast the kids? Like,
In the third one, they
in the
did.
third
A lot
one,
through-
yeah.
okay.
I don't really even remember the second one that well.
The second one,
I
they
mostly remember the
recast
first.
Rocky. All right, and they go to Japan. They go. And
Oh, yeah,
There's
yeah.
that girl, and the baseball tournament gets canceled.
we're going to have to rewatch these.
I think though that like that's the bestseller for that. That like if you say, oh yeah, okay, so Hulk Hogan's in the third one, and someone immediately goes, I'm sold. There's three of them, and Hulk Hogan's in the third. Then that's just how you know.
Yeah, I will say if that does like appeal to you, you're gonna have the best fucking experience of your life watching these movies.
They're like, oh, tell me a little bit more about it. You're like, oh, you won't like it.
It's hard to watch. What was the karate movie we watched with Casey?
Sidekicks, which is also from my childhood.
If you watch a bad movie from back then, especially maybe a martial arts one, you might it doesn't land the same. Like you can admire it, but you got to have that nostalgia factor. So me telling someone who's never seen Three Ninjas to watch it, they'd be like, "Yeah, that was pretty bad, Mitchell."
Well, it's crazy because so many movies from that era, going back and watching them now, feel like commercials that were funded by Big Taekwondo to get kids to bug their parents enough to enroll them in
almost did
weekly
it.
karate lessons. Yeah, absolutely. There's a million of those.
Yeah, that was like pretty early on in my childhood, so I'm pretty sure like it kind of damaged me on like, oh, violence is how you interact with other people, and like I was a very violent child.
Yeah,
and
don't worry if the school bully beats you up, because you'll get to meet him in the final round of the karate tournament that happens very often in your hometown. Don't worry, everyone goes.
And the winner might just be who can karate chop through the most cement.
Yeah. And don't worry, Chuck Norris will be there.
I watched a really bad, not really bad, really good, really dark karate movie on a plane a few weeks ago called The Art of Self-Defense, starring Jesse Eisenberg, and it is bizarre.
Is it good?
But if your kid wants to join karate, show him that movie.
Good to know. Good to know.
Man, it gets weird. Imogen Poots is in there. It's
Love me some Imogen Poots.
yeah, she's great.
Is this the one they talk about like fake? There's like fake martial arts tournaments or something. Like there's something about. Okay, all right. It's not a Netflix.
This is
thing,
about, like,
it?
I need to know what that is immediately.
I
though,
swear I
'cause
saw
that
a
also sounds
Netflix
incredible.
documentary that was talking about how like big there's like scandals like behind like major martial arts competitions or something. I
sounds
swear
fascinating.
I've seen
I
that.
wanna
I need to know because I need
I'll go
to know,
figure it out.
like what makes a legitimate martial arts competition. If you have a bunch of people agreeing to fight, I would call it that. Probably just a martial arts competition. Yeah, we're gonna sell more tickets that way, and Chuck Norris can star in the movie that we eventually make about it.
I'm here for the Netflix docuseries, okay? I binged cheering. Whew. Man.
Man, The Burbs is good.
The Burbs is
Should we move on? Any last thoughts on the Burbs? And we'll or do you guys still do recommendations?
yeah.
Dude, we still.
I don't get that far, okay?
Where? How far did you go?
I literally went halfway around the world, okay? It was a 14-hour flight. My tailbone was in pain. Can only afford coach.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone has. I just love that movie. I think it's a great.
Great.
They play with silence. It's great character arcs.
So good.
It goes,
Did Robert did no, what's that guy's name? I ruined it. Never mind. Just give up.
Were you trying to say Martin Scorsese?
No.
Were you going to make a silence?
I was
joke,
gonna make
or-
a did Deacons do the cinematography on this joke? That's the
And turns out he did.
best thing to do for a how did that's an off mic conversation. I want to ask your opinion on the Oscars because
Which
I
is
wasn't
crazy,
here. But this is
considering the
random.
things I've said into these mics tonight, I'm amazed that
know.
there's anything that shouldn't be said.
I'm really hoping Justin doesn't pick one of my lines for the intro because of some of the things that were said.
Yeah, well, that's a good strategy. Making sure that it's going to letting him know that it's going to emotionally destroy you makes it. Yeah, that's good.
That's true.
Yeah.
Sweet. So this was The Burbs. We're going to take a quick break and we'll come back with some great recommendations of what we've been watching. But first, in case you don't want to listen to the recommendations and you just want to hear about rewatches, next week we have a special treat. Tyler, will you tell us about next week's special treat?
Yeah, next week we're going to have Josh Harris on, who, spoiler alert, is my brother. And we're going to watch the movie Fighting With My Family and also discuss a wrestling pay-per-view that we're all going to watch next weekend that I am so goddamn excited for. I feel like a child, and I'm very excited. But we're going to be talking about that. And then if you want to reach out to us at all, our email address is rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at rewatcherspod. And that's
Welcome back to the Rewatchers on the Pod. We've got some great recommendations coming up for you. I hope. I don't know. Hey, Justin, what do you got for us?
Okay, so this week I haven't finished yet, haven't had time, but I started watching the latest season of Better Call Saul. It just released on Netflix, and I've talked about this before, but the latest season is just as good as all the others have been. I think it's season 5, which is the last season, I believe. I can't remember for sure if this is the end of the story.
I know a new season is airing, I think, starting next month. That is.
Oh,
the last
okay.
season. So I
So
think
maybe
that what just went on Netflix
we're-
is the second to last. or
Okay,
something
so
like
we're a
that.
season behind, like... Are they airing somewhere else other than Netflix right now? Or is it just Netflix?
It's an AMC show.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if it was still being shown on AMC or not.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Cool.
AMC had a premiere the other day, by the way, for El Camino.
A premiere?
Like they were
Oh,
like
interesting.
on it. Like, did someone wait till it was on linear cable after it was on Netflix? For
Yeah,
your months?
I
That's
wonder.
So weird.
I'm honestly, I would be fascinated to know what those deals look like for
Yeah.
stuff like El Camino or Because
Super
it's
weird.
it is
Yeah,
really weird.
I'm clearly I'm out of the loop on what's going on with cable TV. Like the only way I consume media right now is basically just through streaming services. Like Netflix is basically it. So yeah, if there's a new season of Better Call Saul that's dropping in a month, I didn't know that. But yeah, the season that I'm on right now is fantastic. I've also continued to watch BoJack Horseman. Watched a bit more of that and kind of fallen in love with it. It's really great. I know I'm pretty late to the game with that one, but man, it's pretty good. Yeah. So definitely recommend those two again. I've talked about them before, but I'm really enjoying them right now.
Cool.
T-Biz?
So I recommended this last week, but I've continued to read Mick Foley's autobiography, Have a Nice Day.
Is it in character or is it
No,
real?
it's written by Mick Foley. It's just stories from his life. It's behind the scenes on a lot of stuff. It's probably I've read a couple wrestling biographies over the last 6 months or so. This is by far the best. Mick Foley is just such an incredible storyteller. He's really funny. And he tells just insane stories about when his ear got ripped off wrestling, which is just what a fucking nightmare. But it's so good, and it's honestly, if you're interested in what wrestling is like behind the scenes, it's so good. It's really great. The other thing that I've been watching, I have continued. I've watched a couple other Takeshi Beat movies. We talked about this last week with Rob. I watched Sonatine, and I actually watched. Rob recommended off mic that I watch his Zatoichi movie, which Zatoichi is like a long running series of films in Japan from like the 70s to the 90s that is about a blind samurai, and there's like I think 27 of them. And then Takeshi Beat like made another one a few years ago, and it's really good. And watch samurai movies. They're cool and good, and it can teach you a lot about story structure, I feel like, and they're just wonderful. So watch them. But yeah, that's all I got. That's all I've been doing. So,
what would you like to recommend to us?
I recently read Ready Player One, and then rewatched the movie.
Was it your first time reading it?
Yeah, first time reading it. Third time watching it, maybe fourth. Really like the movie, but and I really like the book too. I just think they both had really good qualities. I'd recommend both of those, and then I also watched the latest season of Sex Ed on Netflix.
oh,
I binge watched that as well. It's so unique. It's so fun.
Yeah,
It's like it's modern, but it kind of feels like
it feels 80s.
like 80s or 90s type
Yeah.
of stuff. And that kid is Asa Butterfield. Is that who plays it? Like that whole cast it's trying to be very sex forward, but it is hilarious. It's really well done.
Yeah, it's really good, and they also touch on some really good, real life emotional situations. Like it doesn't get too extreme when they're talking about like the real stuff. So it gets pretty heavy.
Okay.
Pretty interesting.
It's kind of one of those big mouth lines of like, "Hey, kids, masturbate." Here's maybe a different perspective on it because no one wants to talk about
I
it.
just wanted to
Yeah,
make sure that audio was as isolated as possible before I colored it with my own reaction.
Thank you, thank you, Gwen. Or did you have any more recommendations? Sorry.
Which is the line that Big Mouth is really trying. They're standing on that
Dude,
line. They will not let you forget
Maybe
it.
it's because like I kind of like Family Guy, never got to South Park, but those two comedies, which are very dirty, I'm just like, these are the ones I'm embracing for now. Gwen, what do you got for us? What book?
Well, I've got 2 books.
Do you have any coping mechanisms that you can suggest as well for anyone who might?
Wallpaper.
Think about your wallpaper.
So I'm still working my way through a physical copy of Tiamat's Wrath. And I texted my brother twice this week to tell him I hate the book and that he's a bad person for letting me read it. So that's how that's going.
Good. That's good.
Wait, like, are you saying you hate it in the way that like people say they hate like a character, like a villain that's really good, or
The book has broken my heart.
oh, okay, cool. Because
Twice. No, 3
I'm
times.
still on the book before it, and I can't. It's not that it's not good. I can't push through because it's not good enough. I'm at a point in my life where like I'm so busy that I'm like, I need perfection or nothing. Like, don't waste my time with these 8 out of 10 bullshit things, right? I need 9s and above, right?
Okay, but that's how I feel about TV shows. Like, reading is such less of a chore for me than watching TV.
Oh yeah,
is.
I'm about to contradict myself with my recommendation later.
It's a 7, but you should still mess with it. All right.
Now, what?
Sorry, go ahead.
What number is Tiamat's Wrath in this series?
8.
8. Okay. Well, yeah.
And 9 is going to be the last one.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, so I'm reading that one physically, and then
Now
I
you can't
finished-
stop though, right? I mean,
No,
you're at
correct.
8 out of 9.
I must know what happens.
Yeah.
You could Wikipedia it.
No.
What blasphemy.
If it keeps breaking your heart, I'm just saying I've had to learn to quit things because I used to be a completionist.
I'm not quitting. No.
She's not a quitter.
Get behind
the
her,
series
Satan.
has been with me since fucking beach in Mexico. I'm gonna finish it. Anyways, book number 2.
I remember when I was trying to get you to read this series, like for a while.
You tried to get me to read it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'd come over to your house for like game night, and we'd like end up talking
Pretty
about
sure
books.
that
right.
you're the one. Yeah,
And I'd be
I
like,
just haven't started.
I'm like, you gotta read The Expanse. And I was like already done with like book 4, and now you've like passed me, and I can't finish book 8 or 7.
Yeah. Sorry.
No.
I guess I believed my aunt and not you.
That's okay.
That's fair.
There's nothing trustworthy about me, Gwen. So
I wouldn't
As
say
I've
nothing.
learned. Okay, so book number 2, audiobook. I finished The House of Suns, and I was so excited about it. I had such great ideas and an actual Clone War. And then it just kind of petered out and nothing happened and there were no consequences and it kind of sucked.
Sounds like Breaking Dawn. Yeah.
I mean, would you say, okay, hypothetically, if someone was fascinated by the description you gave of this book last time of being ingested by some cosmic being
yeah.
and then spat out of its rectum, is it worth it for that section, or should I go to
It
other
was a
places?
pretty amazing section.
Okay. Still on board a little bit.
I'm just here for the cosmic rectum.
There was also a Dyson Swarm.
Oh.
Yeah, let's not forget.
Tyler, what are you going to recommend to us this week?
Yeah, speaking of mediocrity, I am continuing to watch the Clone Wars animated series.
I just started it. I'm trying.
Okay,
It's tough
make
slog,
it
dog.
past the like halfway through the second season.
Okay.
You gotta make. Here's what I'm doing though, Mitchell. I'm reading the episode synopsis, and I'm like, does that sound like a one-off, or does it sound like it's gonna be worth my time? And that's what the ones I'm watching.
Reddit has some good watching orders where they're like, you can prioritize this and skip these. So I might do that. But again, I feel like a coward if I skip things.
Yeah, like I love the world building of Star Wars so much that I'm like so hungry just to experience something in that universe that doesn't suck ass, which is all we've gotten for a while. So it's like I'm content with the mediocrity of the Clone Wars because it starts out really bad, like and it's not, and where I'm at now, it's not that it's gotten good, it's just cut out enough of the bullshit that I can stomach it. So yeah, I mean, if you're as desperate as I am for something like that, do it the way I'm doing it, and it's working.
Have you read a lot of the books or expanded universe books? Because I've heard that those
ones that are
can be really
not
helpful.
a lot. I've participated in some old like extended universe stuff that's now no longer canon. Some of it good, some of it bad. But yeah, no, I think the thing I do appreciate about the Clone Wars show is like, you always hear in the original trailers like, oh yeah, Anakin's such a great guy, and then you go back and see the prequel trailers, you're like, there's nothing good about this character. Like, this human being is a horrible person from beginning. And the Clone Wars does a good job making him more likable while still being flawed. Even if he's in like all the characters are annoying at some point, but at least it does that, you know. And yeah, it builds out that universe, and the episodic nature of it doesn't bother me as much because it feels like it fits the idea of like a big war, and these are just different, like, you know, battles and moments in that war. So that's interesting. The better thing I participated in this week was I started playing The Outer Worlds finally, and
Cool game.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I am probably 10 hours into it, and it's definitely not like the Fallout replacement everyone was hoping it would be. It's because it's not. It kind of feels to me like the in between of a high budget indie game and a AAA game, somewhere in between there. But it's hitting all the things that like I've been missing about RPGs and video games right now. So I'm loving it. It's got a good art style, got a good humor style, and if those things mixed with some great shooting is your thing, then play the Outer Worlds.
What type of character are you playing, if you don't mind me asking?
I mean, as far as like what skills I'm putting in.
Yeah, like
dude, whenever I play any sort of Obsidian or Bioware RPG, I'm just like put all my skill points in Persuade.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Then I just smooth talk the shit out of everyone.
Yeah.
The thing that I am finding it backfiring on me is like I'm also trying not to steal. And so when I talk my way out of situations where there's supposed to be a huge fight and I go by all the crates, I can't. I'd have to steal if I wanted that stuff.
Right.
And so it's like, but that's what I also appreciate about the game. Like, depends on what you're putting your skill points into. You can punish you in certain ways and reward you in others, and that's really fun.
Cool. Yeah, the game's great.
Sweet. Well, I'll finish up. My recommendation is unemployment. If you want to watch a lot of movies and TV shows and listen to a lot of podcasts, just do not participate in the workforce any longer.
Why doesn't anyone tell you this about unemployment?
So
it sounds great.
I went on a very long international trip where a lot of plane movies were watched. Movies you reserve, like, oh, I'm sitting here, I'm just going to consume this. I will give it a chance.
Something like Skyscraper might only be should only be watched on a plane.
And then I get back, and my job and I parted ways. So you know, I'm dealing with that.
Sure.
I'm doing fine. But in the meantime, I saw 5 movies in theaters this week, and I almost went to go see another one today. And I know those of you with children may have not seen 5 in the last 2 years in theaters, so I'm doing it for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for your sacrifice.
I'm not kidding. I've watched so much, and I wish I could. Yeah. Anyway, my 2 big recommendations would be I really enjoyed the way the Good Place ended, and I was able to binge that on a flight because I had fallen behind on this last season. Sticking the landing is really hard. They obviously ended it after only 4 seasons despite its success, and they did a really good job. Really well done. And then this week, like I said, I saw 5 movies. If I was going to recommend one, let me recommend 2 because one is not for everyone. It's called The Assistant. And it is a smaller movie. It's only 86 minutes long, and it is excruciating. You are literally watching a day in the life of someone who is an assistant at a large Hollywood studio, and it de-glamorizes the shit out of it and eventually moves into, like, you can tell that some verbal some and even sexual abuse and things are going on, and just the way that is oppressed. And it's kind of supposed to be a Weinstein thing, but it's also just supposed to be like overall, like, these people will work 16-hour days and get treated like shit. And it's mostly Julia Garner, who is, I heard she's good in Ozark. I haven't seen it. She won an Emmy for it. She's fantastic in The Americans. She's been in a bunch of stuff recently, but she's incredible. You're watching her constantly throughout her day in this world, and it is punishing, but it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see the males and females around her in this environment kind of infer that you kind of have to accept the shit and see what you can do with your career. It very much makes you not want to be a PA or like go to Hollywood and try and get into the film business and just get shit upon by the higher ups. But I think it's a great exercise in filmmaking. There's not a massive narrative structure, and I think that's hard for people. It has it's one of the worst audience scores I've ever seen on Rotten Tomatoes for a movie that is really good. And usually I get why an audience dislikes a movie, but this one, like, if you went in watching it, there's a reason it made you feel the way it did, and it's super effective. I went on longer than I should have on that, so I'm sorry. The other one, another really short movie is Downhill with Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And it's just about their family vacation to Switzerland and they're more about their marital problems. This was not a good other side of the coin because it's not as funny, but it's just 2 really incredible performances in just this very fun, isolated environment. Sonic could have been worse. It's making a lot of money. So if you want to go have a romp with your kids, it really is a good kids movie. Jim Carrey's doing it. Jim Carrey did in the 90s. So that's where I'll try and put my positive spin. Sonic is fine.
Yeah. Downhill also is a remake of a
Force de Majeure.
Scandinavian movie, yeah, which I think is worth noting.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that one's better, but it's dirtier. Like when the husband and wife fight, it gets way more intense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard it is very much worth your time.
Yeah. And this one adapted by Dean Pelton and Nat Faxon. And wonderful. Yeah, great.
I just listened to a podcast interview with them, and they are fascinating.
Thank you.
They work together so different from other pairs of directors who I've kind of heard speak on the art of that. And it is, I think it's Will Ferrell kind of doing serious, but doing like a really good job. It's still funny. There's still moments, but at being this frustrated father, it's one of his better performances, I think.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, if you guys have questions about anything else that has emerged in the pop culture world in the last 3 weeks, I got you. I watched some really bad reality TV. I kind of was hoping Riley would be here because I was thinking she might have watched it with me.
She might have, yeah. She probably is, yeah.
Cool. Well, do you let's just one more time in case people forgot before recommendations we talked about next week. Just let them know what we're going to be doing next week. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah. So we're going to be watching Fighting with My Family, which is a great one of 3 delightful movies starring Florence Pugh that came out last year.
I finally have seen them all, and she's so freaking good.
She's really good. She's just great. And then we're going to watch a whole shit ton of wrestling.
Should I watch on Wednesday to be prepared? I know you sent me some summary stuff, but I'll watch it.
I also think they might have announced that they're going to do like a thing after Wednesday's episode that recaps everything going into the weekend. So you might be able to do that. I'm going to be keeping my eye on that. But yeah, so AEW, we're going to be watching AEW, the Revolution pay-per-view that is going to be on the 29th. It's going to be really good. So yeah. Sweet.
Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for bringing the Burbs to us. That was a lot of fun. And we'll be back next week with a bunch of wrestling. You've been listening to Rewatchers on the Pod with Mitchell Marshall,
Tyler McKinley,
Gwen Hammer,
Trevor Newsome,
Tyler Harris,
and Justin Hammer.
Bye.
Satan is good. Satan is our pal.